Namaste. A warm welcome on behalf of FICCI India, World Trade Center Shamshabad, FICCI, and the Embassy of Kingdom of Netherlands. I welcome you to today's webinar on the topic, Digital Agricultural Economy Propelling the New Growth Curve. I would request now Mr. C Shiva Kumar, our Country General Manager of FICCI India, to please present the opening remarks.
Thanks, Ananda. Very good morning and warm welcome to all the distinguished speakers. Again, it's my privilege and honor to once again welcome all the speakers of today. FICCI India, World Trade Center Shamshabad, and FICCI, supported by the Embassy of the Kingdom of Netherlands, are organizing a series of webinars to foster progressive thinking and dialogue around pivotal issues in agriculture. The first in the series centered on the theme, Digital Agriculture Economy, Propelling the New Growth Curve. In today's webinar, we have renowned speakers. The first speaker, Mr. Deepak Pareek, Chief Strategy Officer, Suumaya Corporation Limited, Dr. Venu Madhav Margam, Vice President Kalgudi, and Dr. Prakash Nagabovanalli, Dean, College of Agriculture, Gandhi Krishi Vignan Kendra, Bangalore. Shio Joseph, Head of Strategy and Transformation, FICCI Global, is moderating the session. Today, I have been told 200 plus participants from across the regions have registered for this webinar. It's an honor and again my privilege to say a few words about the today's speakers. Shio Joseph, the moderator for the session, is the Group Chief Information Officer and Head of Strategy and Transformation at FICCI Global. He's having impressive more than 18 years in the industry. Shio stands out as a seasoned IT professionals, having led prominent sectors including manufacturing, logistics, life science, and utilities. Our next distinguished speaker is Mr. Deepak Pareek, Chief Strategy Officer, Suumaya Corporation Limited, is a Forbes featured rainmaker, influencer, investor, mentor, ecosystem creator for focused on agriculture technology, food technology, and also clean technology. Basically, is a farmer, technology pioneer, World Economic Forum, and an author. And let me take the privilege to introduce one more speaker. Dr. Venu Margam holds degrees in agriculture and entomology from renowned institutions, including Purdue University. He is now the Vice President of Kalgudi. And more privileged to introduce one more speaker, Dr. Prakash Nagabovanalli, Dean Agriculture at University of Agriculture Science, Bangalore, with a PhD in soil science and postdoctorate from Japan. His research, with over 100 published articles, revolves around various silicon sources in Indian agriculture. Dr. Prakash is having close to 27 plus years of experience in teaching, research, and extension activities. I would like personally thank all the speakers for participating in today's session. Today's topic highlights integrating advanced technologies such as artificial intelligence, AI, the Internet of Things, IoT, and basically big data analytics into the agriculture sector to increase productivity, efficiency, and sustainability. This transformative approach is reshaping the traditional agricultural landscape by providing real-time data on soil health, crop conditions, nutrition, weather pattern patterns. This will also help us to know the outbreak of new pests and diseases. With this, farmer can make more informed decisions. As a result, the entire agricultural value chain is impacted, paving the way for sustainable future. I hope viewers get a comprehensive picture of the future potential and relevance of digital transformation in agriculture. Again, thank you so much. Wish you all the best. Thank you. So over to you, Shio.
Thank you, Shiva Kumar. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, whichever part of the world you are all in. And I'm very happy to be here and participating in this discussion about digital disruption in the agro industry. I think before we touch upon this topic, I think Shiva Kumar introduced most of the speakers here. It's also good to have a look at how digital disruption has played a role in many other industries as well. I think we are very familiar with FMCG, finance, or e-commerce sector where digital disruption has played a key role. I don't have to explain to you how it has changed, the way we do business in these particular sectors. I think there are some common themes that you see across all these sectors, that disruption is not just one area, but it has completely taken over the value chain. That's one of the things that you will notice. You will also see that it has made life smoother, for the end users, whoever. So that's one of the value that has disruption has brought in. And I would also use the word personalization because, all the digital disruption has also a lot of focus on end customers. So it gets very personalized for the end customer or the stakeholder. So having said that, coming into the agro industry and how this is evolving in agro industry, probably agro industry is a late entrant into the entire digital disruption or digitization phase. I'd like to run you very quickly through a couple of slides to give you a context of digital disruption in the agro industry. Can you all see my slide? Okay, so I think when we talk about the digital disruption, there is always what are we doing in the industry? So if it's agriculture, we are, farmers are producing vegetables and they are selling vegetables. There's an entire agro value chain that provides product and services to this industry. I think that is not changing. So the what part of the business pretty much remains the same with any kind of disruption. But I think the how is changing very fast with digital disruption. So you will see that with any form of digital disruption, there is always a value chain that is getting digitized. There is more focus on services than just products, right? So it's an enhancement to selling services versus product. And of course, it is also consolidating the entire value chain in the process. Now, what is it really driving that change or that transformation or what we call as a disruption? I think that's the how part of it. So if you look at the how, has to really get smoother for the farmer or for the end, or stakeholders. So in the agro space, you will see that there is always this, discussion about farm in the box. So you have one-stop solution for the farmer, so he doesn't have to run around. He's at the center of, the digital disruption that is happening. Definitely, it has to provide better yield and better income. That's another key aspects of that transformation. It reduces the risk as well. So if you look at today, specifically the smallholder farm, in the Asian region, there is a lot of risk involved in the agro value chain business itself. So there is, of course, climatic conditions. There are, food price guarantees that are not available for the outputs. There is pest and diseases. So there's a lot of all this risk is pretty much carried today by the farmers. I think reducing the risk is one of the key things that, digitization provides. And I spoke initially, personalization also becomes very important because if I'm a tomato farmer, I need to get a service which is very personalized to me in terms of, what can I do better in that particular area. So I think that is the crux of how digitization works and the value chain and the key contributors to it. So if you look at very specifically in the agro, what are those key values that are provided by the, digital disruption? So here I have tried to map a couple of digital enablers. If you see here, mobile, cloud, all these are. So I don't have to go. You basically know there is satellite imagery and sensors becoming more relevant these days, and it is affecting the entire value chain, whether it is planning to agro inputs to production to processing and ultimately to the market linkage. So you can see the key processes that are getting impacted by the digitization. So it could be automation, it could be traceability, it could be digitizing the logistics part so that there is more visibility on how the materials are moving. And another key important thing is agronomy itself, right? Providing the right inputs at the right time is some of the digital enablers as well. Now, to the left of here, you will see the key stakeholders. You have farmers involved in this entire value chain. There is agri-tech firms that are involved, who is actually taking care of the digitization. Then, of course, you have the agro input providers. It could be seed companies, it could be agrochemical companies, agronomy services. So there are many input providers that are there. And ultimately, you have the end customer and the output aggregators as well. I think if you try to summarize the value of all this, I think to the farmer, it's always a better income at a reduced risk. I think that's a value that digitization can bring when you digitize the entire value chain. I think to the agri-tech firms who is enabling this entire process, I think for them, it's about data, aggregation of that data. I think it wins the farmer loyalty, and also it helps them to understand the farmer better. To an input service provider, it is the insight that is provided by the entire digitization. So the insight makes them to have the right product at the right time, at the right place. And also it makes them, excuse me, it takes them, gives them a faster time to market concept as well. I think additional to this, if you look at the consumers and the output aggregators, I think it's quality assurance and the capability to trace, the traceability, etc., becomes a key aspect here. So I think that's all what I wanted to share in terms of the high level, how the digital disruption is playing in the agro industry. Excuse me for my bad throat. So there are a couple of points that we want to focus during this this session, and one of them key being the adoption of these digital technologies. Because if you look at the smallholder farmers, we are in the Southeast Asian market, we are quite disorganized. There are a lot of challenges, both geographical as well as technological. So adoption and discussing all the challenges around these technologies is also very important, because that also plays a role, and prioritizing what kind of technologies should be taken up first and which can have a bigger impact to the farmers is also very important. So Deepak Pareek was introduced here before as a person who has got a lot of knowledge around moving around in the country, trying to understand what is happening around digital technologies. I would invite Deepak to share his thoughts on how he thinks the digital adoption is moving ahead and what are the challenges that he sees in this specific area. Over to you, Deepak.
Yeah, sure. Thanks a lot, Siju. It's a pleasure to be on this webinar. This is one of the very important pertinent question, which would be there for all the stakeholders who are involved in digital tech ecosystem, right? Whether farmers adopt a technology or not. And this is also one of the issues I've seen that since 2015, that urgency of adoption of new technologies at the grassroots level among the farmers, specifically in global South, that is Africa and Asia, has picked up pretty well. In fact, there has been, I'll say that, booster shot post-COVID. So in COVID, we found that adoption increased manyfold. So before COVID, we were looking at around 8 to 10% of farmers in Asia out of 300 million farmers who would be using some sort of digitization tool. Now that number has swelled in 2023 to 18%. So what we have been able to achieve in past half a century, right? Now we have been able to achieve in just span of 3 years. So this gives you a lot of optimism that going forward we'll see more digitization happening at the grassroots level. And one of the reason which we see that there is a shift in how the companies are, or tech companies or input companies, or those who are working closely with the farmers, they are placing their products or services to the farmer. A farmer is someone who believes in seeing it. He's not someone who you go with a beautiful presentation and then you convince him and then he said, wow, this is something I wanted. So he's a sort of person where you have to show to him that the value is being delivered. I've seen typically 3 types of model being implemented in past 3 years on, I'll say that, very, very fast mode. One of them is actually when we say B2F, that is like businesses or tech companies or input companies directly to the farmer. And we have seen some successful example, for example, a company like Absolute, to a platform called Upaj. They have been able to reach thousands of farmers, where farmers are also willing to pay. Now, there is another misnomer in agriculture that farmers are not ready to pay for technology. But if you are able to show them the value, you are able to deliver the value to them, they are ready to pay. And Absolute is one such example where when they are able to deliver a bouquet of services, whether about advisories, right sort of input, as well as crop insurance on one platform, farmers adopt and farmers are ready to pay. Second type of model which has evolved pretty well, why it is pretty old model, B2B. So companies like Cropin, if you see rather than directly working with the farmers, they work with the stakeholders like input companies, those who are buying commodities like Pepsi, or working with the governments or multilateral agencies, developmental agencies like Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, to name a few, where they actually because they want the impact to be there with the farmer, they actually pay for the technology and farmer adopt and use that technology. Third type of model, which I'll say that have worked decently well is the B2B to F. Now that is where actually I believe a lot of efforts are going on, where different stakeholders, they're collaborating with each other. For example, in Africa, I'm working on a project in which we are having multilateral agencies, we are having the government, we are having a couple of input companies, and we are having a bouquet of different tech companies trying to stitch a solution where they would be able to produce in more efficient manner, efficiently, and deliver all to the markets in India. Now, those type of models, I believe, would lead to more and better adoption, because here the risk of failure of technology is spread across the ecosystem player rather than the farmer. So farmer doesn't become just the the weak lead. As far as in my recent visit to Southeast Asia, and I was surprised in 2015 when I visited Indonesia, a place called Delhi Serdang, where it was very difficult for me to even tell a farmer that remote sensing can work for them and how it can help them. And today I'm seeing in 2023 that they're already using a couple of applications which are delivering the same service which I was talking about in 2015. Now that's where I believe that the power of digitization will not just only help the farmers, definitely it helps them in making more productive and having more economies when they're doing the farming. But for the end user, currently the world is going through severe pain of high inflation. So we are seeing the prices from pulses to rice, everything going up. And the one of the reason is that actually we are having a lot of broken value chains. And this is also where I believe we are seeing some green shoot of technology, for example, blockchain, trying to make the value chains more fairer, remove the typically wastages which is happening in the value chains. And going forward, I believe if we are able to even eliminate 50% of the waste we are doing at the from farm gate level all the way to the end consumer, we would be a better world, and the farming would be more sustainable.
Thank you, Deepak. I think you touched upon a couple of important points. So one was on the remote sensing part. So I just wanted to ask you a little bit on that, because we also see, and you also spoke about some of the B2B players who are making it more accessible to the farmers. So could you elaborate a little bit on that remote sensing, how that has changed over the last few years, and how that is benefiting more, for the smallholder farmers?
Yeah, sure. See, one thing is that, as you've shown in your slide, technology is picking up faster than it used to, half a decade back. So today, our satellites are far better in actually, identifying the variety of the crop with the right sort of machine learning and artificial intelligence tool. We are able to, have the right phenotype being marked, and based on that, we are able to find the health of the crop. Now, that is where actually you find that there was a point of inflection. Previously, you used to say that, okay, fine, this is the soil moisture, this is XYZ, all the parameters, and a farmer is was supposed to be like someone who would have all the parameters in an Excel sheet and then come to a conclusion. Now, because of AI and ML tools, all these remote sensing images, they are delivering far better value to the farmer. For example, it is able to map that I am going PGNP, and based on that, it is able to tell me that because my soil moisture is less, I have to find some way to irrigate it and should not be waiting for the rain to come. Now, these are the small intervention where you give an actionable insight to the farmer rather than huge amount of data, right? So everybody is using Sentinel and giving a image to the farmer, and farmer saying that I can understand this is red, blue, yellow, and all that. Now, what to do about it in my farm, right? In my taluka, I understand everything is green, right? Now, should I just sleep at my home, or should I go to my farm and do something about it? And this is where I believe business disruption is happening, and companies, for example, I mentioned Propelling, then there is Satshore, and these type of companies, they are able to create that value where you are able to deliver actionable insight. And another beautiful thing about remote sensing is that these models are now universal models. Now, typically, we used to see that technology used to be very much customized for a specific type of farmers, and that led to when you try to scale it up, a pilot, it will work fantastically well, and suddenly from rice you go to wheat, and you find that those models are not working. But the remote sensing models today, they are universal. So with the same models, we are with some fine tuning and changing the weights and having right sort of simulation, we are able to do it for typically all the major crop, from maize to pulses to oil seeds to all type of cereals. And that is a big game changer, where the cost of delivering all these type of solution to the farmer has reduced substantially, from something around close to 5,000 INR per hectare. It has gone to the level of between 50 to 500 rupees. Now that is where you'll find that more affordable technologies using remote sensing with more actionable insight, the adoption will be faster going forward. And similarly, remote sensing is now used extensively in reducing cost of giving the insurance as well. Very recently, I wrote an article in Asian Insurance Review where I talked about how this remote sensing technology can enable parametric insurance. we used to have an old model of crop cutting experiment, the failure of weather in a specific taluka, and then only farmers used to get their claim settled. Now you can actually ensure a very specific individual field, and based on the parameters of that field, you are able to directly pay to the farmer if something goes wrong in the weather. So these type of intervention, I believe, will make technology more affordable as well as more effective for the farmers. And this is where I believe remote sensing along with AI and ML will be playing a very, very important role going forward to reduce the risk associated with the farming, at the same time making technology affordable for farmers, hence more efficient and productive farmers.
Thank you, Dr. Pareek. So, thank you, Deepak. Before I jump into the academic part of this entire discussion, and we are discussing about technology, I'd like to hear a bit from you, Dr. Prakash, on how you all perceive digital technologies in the agro industry from an academic perspective. What are your thoughts and inputs on the same?
Thank you, Shiju, and thank you others for giving me this opportunity to join and share my thoughts in this webinar. From the perspective points of academy, so I can say agriculture universities and the agricultural students, what exactly look at the digital technology and digital disruption in Indian agriculture is my view. So as we are all aware that it is just started in the 2 decades or so with IT-BT into a greater structure and revolutionizing Indian agriculture to a greater extent. The digital agriculture no doubt involves integration of digital technology, data analytics, and precision farming techniques. And Deepak has given already a brief introduction in this regard. And we use the word economy in this webinar, digital agricultural economy as such, that we need to say how this particular digital agriculture or technologies are revolutionizing the way we produce, the way we manage, and the way we distribute our agri inputs as such. And you also showed in one of the slides, better income and reduced risk is major motto of this asset. So my perspective from the point of academy as representing the agriculture university sector, the Indian agriculture universities are necessary to recognize the importance of digital agriculture, especially in terms of its 3 important mandates as teaching, research, and extension activities. So all our students need to be made as student ready, or future ready, or industry ready with the advancement in digital technology as such. So from the point of course curriculum development, so almost all agriculture universities need to revise their academic program, mainly to incorporate the courses and training modules in this particular digital agriculture. So most of the course curriculum involves the subjects what Deepak mentioned, precision farming, remote sensing, and GIS. But technology know-how, better transmission, which can be industry ready or future ready, is the need of our. So technical know-how is very important. So that means to say, a greater approach is necessary for our faculty development and infrastructure development, which is lacking in most of the agriculture universities. So our students need to be very well aware of these aspects, because the situation is at its infancy in that sense. So in this case, what I can suggest, industry academia collaboration is very crucial, mainly to keep its pace with the development of digital agriculture. So coming to the research, which was also touched upon by Deepak. So most of the universities, agri universities, have established with dedicated research centers, and center of excellences are there, and precision farming, robotics, drones, and the remotely sensed irrigation systems, and precision fertilizer application, soil health sensors, all such aspects. But state agriculture universities must support the basic research. So most of the time what we say, universities produce the package of practice for the benefit of our farmers, with all the cultivation aspects, the indigenous or hybrids which are developed, and no technical know-how for the benefit of farmers. When we involve digital technologies, so digital agriculture technologies that need to be validated, whether it is sustainable among the existence of the development in future scenario among the farmers. So that is very, very important. So before the digital practices to be involved in the hands of the farmer, that has to be validated. So one has to have most up-to-date solutions for these aspects. So that is one important aspect which I can say. And coming to the extension agencies which are being involved, and that is also one of the major mandate of the universities. So we do consider them as the knowledge hub, and which jointly work hand in with the farmers on the university side, and also with the State Department of Agriculture and Industries. So extension services need to include guidance on using farm management softwares, sensors, drones, and other technical know-hows, which are all involved, are coming out from the point of digital technologies. So that means to say a strong commitment to incorporate this technology in the education system and in the research and outreach can definitely plan most of our state agriculture universities vital contribution for the transformation of the existing agriculture sector. I can say the hand between farmers, agri-industries, together with universities can take our agriculture, Indian agriculture, to a greater extent. So this is my view from the point of academic aspects for the time being at this moment. Thank you, Shiju.
Thank you, Prakash. I'm going to come back to you more on the academic side. I just wanted to hear a bit on the digital side, what you perceive. Really, thank you for that. And I also see some questions, here in the comment in our chat box. People asking how is this being reaching to the farmers, right? All these technologies, how it's impacting, and how is it being perceived. So I think Dr. Venu is probably the best person to talk to us a bit on how this is being adopted in the rural areas, and how not only the farmers, the FPOs, and the other stakeholders who are involved in the value chain is perceiving this, specifically the digital part of it. So Venu, if you could throw some lights on how farmers perceive this digital adoption.
Good morning, all. It's an honor and privilege to be part of this distinguished panel. And like Shio mentioned, there are various values that are actually driving the ecosystem of the digital disruption. And rightly, like Deepak mentioned, now with the rapid adoption of mobile technologies as well as network connectivity, even in the remotest parts of the world, it is now possible to actually take the technology and interventions, digital interventions to the grassroots level. And I'll just mention how we are doing it in case of Kalgudi, and what our experience has been. Basically, in the traditional agri ecosystem, traders play a vital role, because most of the primary produce that farmers produce is directly not marketable. Even if in case of vegetables or fruits or other produce, there's some sort of value addition required, like sorting, grading, or primary processing. And primarily because of the scale, and largely agriculture being smallholder level farming, scale has become an important aspect. And that's where this initiative of farmer producer organizations, the government is actively pushing it, as well as several impact organizations are also promoting these farmer producer organizations. And directly working with farmer is a tremendous, there are many difficulties, but with collectivization and working at the level of farmer producer organizations, it's much more effective and efficient to reach the smallholders, because the advantage of scale and aggregation kick in when you work at the farmer producer organization level or the collective level. So that's what we are actually building technology solutions for FPOs, something we call as FPO net, wherein FPOs now take this role of aggregating the supply as well as the demand needs. So demand in terms of inputs at the smallholder level. Each FPO has a membership of 500 to few thousands. So it becomes much more viable for them to aggregate their demand need, and then negotiate with input suppliers. And at the same time, like Shio mentioned, input suppliers need insights. What is the demand, and they need to anticipate what is needed for the next season. For example, which variety of seeds, and what kind of chemicals needed. So that is possible through the FPOs, because the data from the member level can now be, through digital enablement, aggregated and then provided to input as well as output suppliers. So same goes in the case of traders. When it comes to traders looking to buy outputs, they don't buy chili or tomato. They buy a particular variety of chilies, a particular grade of chilies, and a particular quality of chilies. And they're very specific about which location they want to purchase as well. So digital enablement and collecting data as well as aggregating the supply at the FPO level now makes it possible, discovery as well as matchmaking of supply to the traders. So we are also doing this through our outputs platform, wherein we digitize both the farmer level stocks as well as the FPO level stocks, and then make them available to the traders who are also on our platform. The same goes with our inputs platform. We get the demand from the FPOs and then provide them linkages to input suppliers. When it comes to the knowledge as well as advisories, we link up with universities and knowledge partners like universities as well as ICRISAT also play a vital role in providing advisories on our platform, wherein we enable Q&A from farmers as well as FPOs. Farmers pose the questions and then get a response from the knowledge partners like universities as well as research organizations. And not last but least, when it comes to last mile reach, micro entrepreneurs at the rural level play a vital role, and we are coming up with rural e-commerce models like Uberization at village level, wherein we are building digital tools for rural micro entrepreneurs, something we call as Kalgudi Uberization, Kuber, short form. And these Kubers play a vital role in collecting data, collecting images of stocks, doing quality control, and all sorts of activities that are required at the village level or at the grassroots level. And most importantly, there is also some value addition that is needed. For example, in case of vegetables or fruits, sorting and grading in pack houses, and that activity can be taken up by women SHGs. So we're also building digital technologies for something called SHG net, which is vital again to build one more layer over the FPOs. So these are different ways we are actually tackling, and we are currently having projects in 6 states, working primarily with FPOs and SHGs.
Thank you so much, Dr. Venu. So I wanted to have just one more question on this, specifically on the digitization challenges. I think all of us are aware of the climate changes that are happening, and how it's going to affect the food security. So Deepak, from your experience around, digital technologies and challenges and seeing the business environment around Asia and Africa, how do you think this is? Of course, there are certain things that can address those challenges. Does it also see changes in the way we do farming, like moving to protected cultivation and things like that? So what do you think about that?
No, sure. See, actually, we cannot just rely on one technology, that is digitization, to help with tackling the climate change. We'll have to make our agriculture climate resilient by using biotech, by ensuring that better type of seeds which are more resistant to the adverse effect of climate. That's one part of it. When we talk about digitization, I believe the biggest impact digitization can play is by reducing the waste. The waste itself is is a criminal part of after putting all the efforts and all the resources, we are not actually utilizing what has been produced by our farmers. So depending on different type of reports, you go through different countries, from 10% to 30%, different claims are there. I'm not going to go into that, but I'm saying that even if the 10% of food is getting wasted, right, in supply chain, digitization can ensure that we can reduce that at least by 50%. And that would save, definitely one thing is the food, and secondly also will have a positive impact on the climate, because then you'll have less GHGs emitted to produce more food. That's one part of it. Second area where digitization can play a very vital role is that having the right sort of mitigation tools and making farmer aware about it. For example, if I was in East Africa, and in March we had a very bad weather there because of El Nino, and now we are seeing the same thing impacting other parts of the world, including Australia and in India. Now those warnings were there, were farmers told about it in a right manner, and were the alternatives given to them? What could have been a better crop to grow in such scenario, right? Farmer at the last moment, they have to take a call that actually what they should be cultivating. There are various models which could have said that, like, rather than growing soybean, you can grow XYZ, or rather than growing pigeon pea, you can grow YZ. Now, those type of intervention, I believe, are very important. A third area where I believe is that we need to have a better models for predicting weather, right? We do good when we are talking about short-term weather. This whole idea of doing averages, right? Everybody talks about the monsoon would be normal across India. But if you see only in 1/3 of India, like, it is normal, because at some part it is excess and some part it is deficit. And when you average it out, you say that we are supposed to be having a normal monsoon this year. And farmer believe that there will be normal monsoon. And I believe that this is where the personalization, to based on, like, to his farm level, to tell him that actually what would be the impact of the monsoon, or what would be the impact of the weather to his farm, rather than giving this, like, averages, which is for a whole of country or whole of region, is not going to work. These are, I believe, like small intervention digitization can play. But yes, you rightly mentioned that we need to have other ways of also tackling climate change, whether it is a productive agriculture, where we are talking about hydroponics, aeroponics, to ensure that food security is taken care of. At the farmers level, then again, like, we have to reduce the waste and ensure that they're having more remunerative prices when they are growing alternative crops.
Thank you, Deepak. Moving away a little bit from the technology side, Dr. Prakash gave us an introduction about what's happening in the academy sector. At the start of this webinar, we all joined 10-15 minutes before all the speakers, and one of the things that Deepak said was, we are trying to make this agriculture a bit more attractive and fancy, for the youngsters. And Dr. Prakash, you are the one who is working with a lot of youngsters, because you are in the academic sector, and you deal with a lot of students. How do they perceive agriculture in today's world, or has it changed with all this digitization? Do they perceive differently now? What do you think about it?
Yeah, thank you, Shijo, and a very optic question. What we have right now in the agricultural universities under ICR, there is ICAR. So we have the 5th Dean's Committee of Education. And most of you are aware with the agriculture background and agriculture students who passed out 2 decades and ago has undergone extension camp, the village stay camp, so that we can easily remember. Now we have RAWE, that is a rural awareness work experience, wherein our students do stay along with the farmers in the villages almost for 3 months. So apart from that, they have the student ready and future ready program, maybe as experiential learning, that is in with business mode and without business mode, and sometimes a hands-on training. So with some kind of a technology which has been developed in the university, and to have some kind of innovativeness to sharpen their skills. So they do have some kind of sharpening their technologies. They do have training programs. So that is called as experiential learning without business mode. And internship is also available. And in-plant training is also available. And industrial placement is also happening. So a few days, that is 2 to 3 weeks, our students will definitely get attached to some kind of industries, maybe seed industry, fertilizer industry, to acquire knowledge regarding what actually been happening to them. So most of the time, what is actually happening, for almost 3 years, they learn basic courses and some of the practical aspects, but we need to make them with digital touch. So that is very important, and we need to revise our course curriculum in this regard. And whenever they stay in the villages, almost for a period of 6 months, that is 3 months, 3 months stay, and the whole RAWE program, that is Rural Agri Awareness Work Experience program for 6 months. So wherein we can make our students to adapt some of the innovative digital technologies. So in the hands of the farmers, maybe we have SAP, that is pest and disease surveillance apps are available. And soil testing, fertilizer recommendation apps are available. And so these are the tools with the development of soil health cards. Maybe sometimes a day may come with animal health cards. So these are all the aspects wherein our students need to be motivated and trained for adopting the digital technologies, and can be delivered to farmers, and can come back with some of the problems wherein our scientists can review and then reshape it with a proper viable technology, which is really need to be hands with the farmers, farmers' hands as such. Apart from that, so industry partnership is very important for our university setup. So wherein advancement is happening and a lot of infrastructure is already available. So they need to commercialize their technology, but they can very well be with a part of the state agriculture universities. So our faculty get trained, our students can have good experience in this regard, and later once they come out as the graduates of the universities, they're all in the hands of the industries. So if such kind of innovativeness is happening well before at their undergraduate and postgraduate level, so they are really future ready students, so which can be marketed by the industry partners. So that is very important. So in this view, what I can say as a major title as industry digital agriculture in India cannot emerge as a successful enterprise so without a private public partnership. So public private partnership is very important. So the public sector should focus more on research infrastructure and policy and support system, whereas the private sector can definitely take on the customization or dynamical multidisciplinary, including agronomical aspects, so cost of cultivation and some of the agronomical development and even value addition and delivery system. So, but one thing is sure that both of them should work hand in hand and in tandem, no doubt involving the farmers. So that is what we are doing at the initial stage in the grassroots level, where we are training our students, and farmer producers organizations and also the consumers need to be very well be aware of the existing aspects. So wherein Venu also mentioned and Deepak has given a lot of insight. So hope I have given a good touch from the point of academic background in my opinion. Shijo, once again, thank you.
Thank you, Prakash. I think Deepak has something to say about that. Please go ahead, Deepak.
Yeah. So actually, with folded hand, I would like to request all the academic institutions also use digital technologies to use as extension of extension service itself. We are seeing you go to YouTube, how to make 10 lakh rupees from acre by all the people who are novice, right? There is no validated information. They'll show some farm, they'll talk about anything. And then actually farmers, because I'll say that those progressive farmers would see that YouTube video and they try to do it on the farm. I believe we are having such a strength of our research institution who are having humongous amount of data information. They have to become, I'll say that, little bit glamorous and put beautiful videos with right sort of information. And believe me, that itself will play a very big role in increasing the productivity of India. That was my just limited point, sir.
Thank you, Deepak.
Thank you very much for your.
Thank you. And I think going back to our discussion on the rural communities and the FPOs, I also see a question here which looks very relevant, because end of the day, FPO or a consolidator is, farmers can graduate into that role, right? Or can develop themselves into that role. So is there really a structure around in terms of how do I move from a farmer to an FPO, or do I take up a consolidator role? Is there kind of initiatives from the government side, Venu, from your experience, how you see that happening?
Yes, with the initiative like 10,000 FPOs, the government has pushed, FPO formation, and then various impact organizations like NABARD, as well as at state level, there are organizations like SERP in AP that actually sponsor as well as promote FPOs. So the ecosystem is now quite positive in terms of onboarding farmers and then mobilizing farmers to be part of collectives. And farmers are also gradually realizing the benefit of being part of these collectives, because one aspect is we think that every farmer should become like an entrepreneur and be able to sell directly to consumers and whatnot. But most of that is to a certain extent is impractical, as well as scale is another issue where the smallholder farmer cannot become entrepreneur in most cases. So collectivization provides that benefit, and slowly farmers are realizing that, and we are seeing a lot of positive change even from impact organizations as well as state governments. There are World Bank funded programs. For example, in Assam, we are doing a project with ARIA society, wherein we are digitally enabling 137 FPOs. Again, working with Assam Agriculture University and other knowledge partners, providing crop calendars, advisories through IRI, and as well as market linkages through institutional players. So slowly, I think once the benefits are visible and apparent, the individual farmer will get onto this, digital enablement, the digital train. But again, most important is the digital alone will not be enough. And what we are finding is we now call it phygital, where all the interventions that we do. So a strong physical presence in terms of digital assistance, providing trainings and building capacity for at farmer as well as FPO level to be able to use these tools effectively is also needed. So that's my
Thank
take
you,
on
Dr. Thank you, Dr. Venu. I think what you said last is very important, right? A physical presence, because you see most of the digital models that are getting implemented today, it's not the farmer and he's getting digitized. It's a process that is getting digitized. So end of the day, he get better insights on time. He get better inputs on time. I think that's a cracks, right? So you cannot expect every farmer in every region to be fully techno-savvy to use the technologies. I think most of the successful models that you see that are getting implemented are the ones that are really doing a lot of field work, non-digital work on the field to map the processes, to understand the problem, and digitize the back end first to enable better insight and better service to the farmers. I think that's a key. Thank you, all of you. I just wanted to summarize. I think so. Some of the key things that came up from the discussion is also, in terms of technology, I think it's getting very much viable now, and it's moving at a much faster. So it's not really just the technology improvements, but it's also the adoption getting much faster now because of viability of the solutions, and the technology is being adopted by a wide variety of value chain players. I think that's a key message I got. I think from academy side, I think it's very important that there is better collaboration between agro organizations, industries, and academy itself. And I think that is to make your students who come out, your graduates, to be up to date rather than they come and do another 3 years, to really understand what's happening around technology. I think I really like what you said on experiential learning. I think that's a good word. I think we do that for the doctors, right? So when we a lot of our students who do MBBS today, they go to the rural areas, they would do training for months. I think we should be doing something very similar to the farming sector as well. I think that's one of the things. And I think a few other things that I picked up, how the scalability is getting addressed through FPOs and last mile digitization that is happening. So I think a lot of really good inputs. Thank you, everyone. I want to set aside some time for question answers, from the, from anyone who wants to ask questions. I can also see that there are some questions here at the chat box. Before I hand over to you, Ananda, I probably wanted to address a question here around the revenue sharing and, how when all the agro input providers value chain is coming together, how is that also? It's not only beneficial for the farmer, right? It has to be also beneficial for the players as well. I think my short answer to that is this is something that is evolving. And if you look at the slides that I presented, the way we do business is changing, the how is changing, right? So to take an example, we are an agro input company. So if we decide to go completely digital, say in a state in the country, we probably may not deploy a sales team because we would have a digital partner who is going to do the marketing. So our business model might change from a B2B to a B2C. So I think that's how it's evolved. So it's not a one size fits, but I think it will eventually evolve. And we have seen how this evolves in the other, industries as well. The new lines of businesses being created, new revenue streams have been created because of this. Because agronomy digitization would completely create a new revenue stream. So a company like us who is very strong in agronomy, that could be a future revenue stream. So I think we still need to wait and see how this evolves, but definitely there is a complete benefit to the entire value chain players as well in this. I think that's my answer on that. Over to you, Ananda, if you want to take up some of the questions that are there on chat box.
Thank you, Shijo. That was very insightful. I think there are a couple of very decent questions here in the chat box. Is it, do I address it to one of you as speakers, or would you like to pick it up and then answer it? We can start with maybe Dr. Venu.
No, sorry, I don't see the questions.
Okay, then I will ask the question. How can digital agriculture help address the challenges of climate change and food security? But maybe I will ask you this question. Becoming a FPO member, is it volunteer to smallholder farmer, or is there a dedicated effort from governmental agencies?
Yes. So in most of the cases, like here in AP or Telangana, there are commodity-wise FPOs, commodity-specific FPOs, or in some cases it could be commodity-agnostic FPOs. And typically it starts with formation of smaller groups, something called farmer interest groups or FIGs. It involves like 10 members in FIGs, and then these FIGs together form an FPO. So it's actually it works in both ways. It's more of a pull rather than a push, wherein impact organizations are actually promoting these FPOs and encouraging farmers to be part of these collectives.
Great, thank you. There is another question from Noora Mohanty. Appreciate everyone's view on progression on adoption of technology, but when it comes to outcome and when it comes to developing states like Odisha, Chhattisgarh, and few other states, how is technology adoption trend by the farmer? How well is farmer comfortable in these technological interventions? And how well the companies are managing their revenue model by imparting technology? Please throw some light on this. Deepak ji, would you like to take this question?
Yes, sure. So I'll take example of Odisha first. Odisha, already there is a extraordinary program which is supported by the government of Odisha, which is on millets, right? And they are doing everything possible to bring on technology on the table about digitization, market linkages, transparency, traceability. So in that aspect, it is very well-oiled machinery being supported by the government. So you'll find that in the states where we are seeing that the overall income of the farmers are low, and where actually last mile access to farmer is a little bit challenging, whether you talk about Chhattisgarh, Bihar, Eastern UP, you'll find you need to have definitely the public sector support coming from the government. And this is where you find that the difference between South and I'll say East and North of India, where in South you'll find that it is more driven by the private sector with all agtech companies based out of typically Hyderabad, Bangalore, Pune. And in the North, you find very limited companies which are actually based out of or east of India, based out of these locations. And there you need definitely the government support. And we are already seeing that this is just not with the agriculture. Any developing state and the developed state, you'll find there would be difference in delivery of the services and the interest of private sector to tap into that. And this is where the government support is very critical. And I believe I'm not very sure about Chhattisgarh, but Odisha, I've seen that the government is taking all the steps required to bring in technology disruption in the agriculture sector.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And another question is, how can digital agriculture help to address the challenges of climate change and food security? Dr. Prakash, would you like to take up this question? I think it's from a student.
Actually, there are, of course, a lot of research work is also happening in the universities in this aspect. So many projects are also been in pipeline. So what Deepak also mentioned in this regard. But from the point of students' know-how and the awareness, so there is a part in the course curriculum. So no doubt. So the students are very well aware of it. And I'm happy to say a large number of research work is also happening in different agricultural universities. And under NICRA project, a lot of research innovations in dryland agriculture and water management and fertilizer management, in mitigating greenhouse gas emissions and nitrous oxide emissions. All such aspects are already been mentioned, and a lot number of publications are also being made from different scientists across in representing different state agricultural universities. And a lot of ICR institutes are also working on these aspects. But the point of its adoption is when it comes to the technologies in the hands of the farmers. So that is very important. So that particular aspect need to be very well adaptable by the farmers, and which one need to adapt and which one not to adapt, and thereby is the most important aspects. And digital touch in this regard is just in the researchable aspects, no, may not be from the point of the outreach methods. This is my view in this regard.
Another question probably to you is what do experts think for natural farming?
Point to share on
Yeah, just a bit on the climate resilience
yes,
part of it.
Please.
See, actually, we are already seeing novel breeding technologies which are supported by digital agriculture, where simulation ensure that actually for new seeds to come out take a little bit shorter. And the technologies like CRISPR-Cas, where SDN1 and 2 has been allowed in India, you'll find a lot of climate resilient seeds coming up in the market. Just because now you are having AI and ML in your labs where you can simulate rather than actually do it the old way where it used to take more than a decade to come with good seeds. And I believe this is going to be acting as a catalyst going forward in making agriculture more climate resilient. That was just my intervention. And I'm sure East West Seed would be also doing that.
Yeah, I think we're also into the new technology, Deepak. Maybe this is also a good opportunity. If any of the students interested, probably we want to expose them. What are the new technology? What are the challenges? I think we talked a lot about digital domain. So how do we really utilize to enhance the farmer skill set? I think that's where the result lies, and that's where the focus needs to focus in coming days.
And in my view, seed is the most important technology in the world if you really want to change agriculture.
Yeah.
Seed and the soil too.
Another important aspect I would like to add is the incentives for farmers, to adapt these technologies. And I think now it's an emerging, sector like carbon credits. Even in India, there are several projects coming up wherein farmers are now able to adapt or practice these practices.
Thank you. Ananda, there's a question on AI and satellite tech, so probably I can take that.
Please, yes.
I see that how this is shaping up digital decision making in farming. I think this is also a topic very close to me because I don't know if you have heard of hyperspectral satellite imagery now, which is which is kind of a very advanced way of looking at farms and crops. I think it's able to detect almost 7 to 8 high level parameters of a crop field. You are able to know the stress factor, you are able to know the pest and disease factors, the water content, the moisture content. So I think the technology has evolved from just telling you the weather from the satellite. I think it's getting very specific. And the factor that a lot of these agri-tech players are now able to break it up, do it for a specific area. Say, for example, you take Nasik and you have a tomato plantation there, and they are able to very specifically provide information about that particular area and how the plantation is growing. So I think it is eventually evolving as a big part of the agronomy service itself, the satellite imagery. I think this gets very proactive because you can understand the stress levels, you can understand the water levels, and the important things that you don't see with the common eye. We had a very good example of a satellite imagery that we were doing a testing, and we found that the water content is very, very high in one corner of the plot, and we realized there was a pipe leakage. Now, a lot of these things normally you don't see with naked eyes, right? So I think that's where it plays a very big role in the agronomy itself and in the crop. I think it also plays a big role in the planning. So now we are having all these climate changes. I think satellite imagery can really tell you. So it's a combination of data, right? So it is a past data, it is a weather forecast, and the stress factor that you have currently on the field put together can say that can we really grow tomato here, or should we look at alternate places to grow? I think it helps a lot in crop planning as well. So I think this is a technology that is evolving a lot. I feel that more than IoT and sensors, satellite imagery would be more beneficial. It would take up, because having sensors is again personal dependent. It's a manual job. You need to have the sensors at the right time, at the right place, etc. I think imagery would really redefine this, and I think that technology, as it gets more viable, will be more will get more adopted, in the farming.
Thank you so much. So it was a great discussion and great insights and a very passionate way the conversation has flowed. Very thankful. Now I request Vignesh, our Associate Director for World Trade Center, to please present the vote of thanks. Just a small, flag for all our viewers is we will host it on YouTube, and we'll post the YouTube links in the social media platforms. Please watch out. You can watch the entire, the webinar again. Thank you so much, Vignesh, over to you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ananda. And I would like to present the vote of thanks on behalf of World Trade Center Shamshabad. Firstly, the supporting organizations that we have for this webinar, the Embassy of Netherlands, FICCI, and of course the SpaceSeeds for coming in forward and joining this webinar and circulating it to all the members and garnering support for this webinar. And most importantly, C Shiva Kumar sir joining in for this webinar on a busy Monday and giving in the opening remarks. And then we have all the speakers, Dr. Prakash, Deepak sir, Venu sir, and also Mr. Shio for brilliantly, giving a flow to this webinar. I think the webinar has been rightly structured on a part 1, part 2, part 3 basis. We have covered the different perspectives from academia, industry, and also the organizations. And also lastly, all the audience attendees joining in from the webinar from all the parts of the globe. You have been very engaging, given a lot of good, insightful questions. It shows that we have got some good attendees of 60 people, and a lot of people have missed on this webinar. I would request everyone, as mentioned by Ms. Ananda, please look out for the YouTube links on our social media handles, circulated to all the stakeholders who are in the industry who can join and take this words from our speakers. And also we look forward for your joining and for the other webinars that we host. Thank you so much once again, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.